Hello readers, I'm David Reader and today I'm reviewing The Second Sleep written by Robert Harris in 2019. So when you start reading this book you think it's happening in 1468, so during medieval times in England. And it's a story about a priest who visits a village because another priest has died and he unveils mysteries there. But it's a lot more weird than that. It's a very odd book. It's the weirdest book I've read by Robert Harris yet. So the main character is Christopher Fairfax, and he's a priest, and he's going to this village because another priest called Lacey has died. He gives his funeral speech there, and there's some heckler there who says something odd. And during one of the nights, he's awake and he's looking through stuff of Lacey as he's staying at the church place. And there's a housekeeper and a girl there, and he sees that Father Lacey has these books. These books contain sciencey stuff, or it seems about preparing for the inevitable collapse about society. And here you're getting clues that this is in the future and not in the past, this story. And this stuff is guided by the Society of Antiquaries, which was illegal and was shut down eventually, and its leaders were thrown in jail for a while. And this includes Dr. Shadwell. And Christopher Fairfax, he goes and visits Sarah Durstein, who's a widow, and she's on this big estate, and she's a hardworking woman. She can hold her own, and she reveals some odd stuff to Fairfax. There's this room that her husband, who worked himself to death to find this weird stuff, she presents a room which has this glass thing. And earlier when Fairfax discovered that book, he also discovered something with a half-eaten apple on it. And while they're doing this, there's also some guy called Captain John Hancock who comes over for dinner. So they have an awkward conversation. Christopher Fairfax goes home. He meets up with Sarah Durstein and goes to see the speech of one of these Society of Antiquaries, which is run by Dr. Shadwell, and he shows electricity and he makes Fairfax and Durstein have a kiss, and that event is considered by the church as heresy, so the sheriffs come in and arrest Shadwell. And earlier in this book, Fairfax has gone to a place called Devil's Chair, which has a lot of odd stuff, and he's found bones there. There are remnants of the past there. And Christopher Fairfax and Sarah Durstein, they decide to go to John Hancock, who's quite a wealthy individual, and ask him to propose bail for Dr. Shadwell because he can make some money out of it, I think it was. And John Hancock here, he's engaged to Sarah Durstein now, so he agrees. They get him out on bail, and they decide they're gonna have an expedition to this Devil's Chair place. And Captain John Hancock, while he spends a bunch of money to bring along 30 workers to start digging to find stuff at this Devil's Chair place, and they find some bones. You've got Dr. Shadwell, who's out on bail until Monday, so for 2-3 days, and he's got with him some assistant called Queek. He's suspected by Fairfax as he met with Lacey the day he died, which was revealed by another character from some subplot. They dig. Eventually they start digging a tunnel. They hit metal, some big contraption. Then the ground collapses and one of the workers is suffocated. All of the workers decide we're gonna go home and end this. But John Hancock, who's brave but a little crazy, he gets a bunch of black powder to blow up a big hole to get to this big metal thing. So the other characters, which are Durstein, Fairfax, and Shadwell, they're in the back. Hancock lights the fuse and tries to leave, but he waited a little too long, so the explosion knocks him out temporarily. The others get up, but they have their ear ringing, but they're fine. They go together to this metal thing. They cut open a hole. They go inside and they see some weird painting, which they can see because they have torches lit. The thing is indicating people trying to flee from something dead, and they found bodies while digging this thing. So there seems to have been a massacre, and it turns out that's because you had the colonists, after the apocalypse, kill the villagers here. So at the end of the story, what we understand is that this is in the future, not in the past. You know, the collapse of society, computers, all that, and that could have been because of climate change, because of a virus, or because of something else. And that's how the church took dominance and then suppressed this information. And they're trying to get open big metal door to get into another room. They found some body someplace in there. This is when you have the sheriffs show up and the bishop, the big bad guy in this book, Bishop Paul. And throughout this book you have Christopher Fairfax questioning his loyalty to the church, and he's completely turned at the end of the book. He's almost lost his faith, you could say, in Christianity. Bishop Paul makes a big evil speech about how he has the knowledge, he doesn't destroy it, he keeps it for himself. He gave the knowledge of books to Father Lacey because, by the way, those books were written by Shadwell. Paul saw that he couldn't trust Shadwell. It turns out that the assistant of Shadwell quick, he's a traitor, he's been giving information. He accidentally started Lacey to fall to his death. Now Bishop Paul is going to have them all tried for heresy. But then somehow you have a mudslide out of nowhere which kills everyone except Sarah Durstein and Christopher Fairfax, who have gotten into a room. They've started a relationship, by the way, throughout the book. That's a subplot between him, her, and John Hancock. And everyone's dead except the two of them, and they're locked into a room. There's another big metal door. They try to open it, but they can't get it open. So Christopher Fairfax goes to lie down next to Sarah Durstein, and they die peacefully, knowing the truth of the past. That's the story. So how would I rate The Second Sleep? It's a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed this book much less than other Robert Harris books. Why? First half is just confusing and you've just got to have a bunch of events happening. In other Robert Harris books, you've got the politician, you see the politicking, tinkering. In Fatherland, you get to see the investigation of what is happening with the murder and a larger conspiracy. Here it's just a priest going around. He wakes up between his first and second sleep. He goes to meet a bunch of people. And the second half of the book is good. But overall, I would say it's a decent book. This is an alternative history book, kind of, because it's in the future, because you had some apocalypse. It's kind of dystopian also, you could say, and the church has kept power now, but it's not written that well, I would say. The idea of the story is good, but the first half of the book is basically Christopher Fairfax being the new priest at this village, and then the second half, that's better, but still, Robert Harris books are normally great. This is a decent book because I was not intrigued throughout all this story. There are intriguing elements, it's just that the plot just goes a bit everywhere. It's a confusing book, and the ending, it's basically discover the truth, but we're gonna die anyway, and we're not changing anything. So the bad guy's dead, the good guy's dead, nothing's changing. With the Cicero trilogy, you get to see the rise and fall of Cicero. That's interesting. With Fatherland, you've got the main character doing something, and he dies at the end. However, he still accomplishes something. The ending of this book, it's not a bad ending, but it's still the same result pretty much. Nothing changes at the end, really. Another priest is dead. That's the book. It's a decent book, so if you're interested in medieval stuff, you're gonna like this book. If you wanna read about the medieval church power dynamics, you would like this book probably. If you're someone who likes more recent, modern history with alternative history in that sense, you won't like this book. For Robert Harris, you could read much better. If you wanna read Robert Harris, skip this, I would say, unless you're really interested in medieval history. Otherwise, read the Cicero trilogy or read Fatherland. Or you can read Munich, that's a good thriller. That's fast-paced. Munich is the diametrical opposite of this. This book is just slow. So, 7 out of 10. A decent book. So this was the average reader's review of The Second Sleep, written by Robert Harris in 2019. It got a 7 out of 10. I hope you readers enjoyed this book review, and I will see you readers next time.